You never know what you can accomplish until you try it, and you don't have room to improve at something unless you practice. So today I'm going to be doing the trendy Boho Knotless Fulani flip over style on myself using only human hair. So first things first, I'm gonna do some pre-parting on myself. I opted to do pre-parting this time because I felt like it was gonna be much more time consuming to try to part the sections as I go. So the way that I'm doing the pre-parting is I just set up my phone on a tripod behind me, and then I screen mirror it to either my iMac or my laptop so that I can see the back of my head while I'm parting. And you should really be able to do this with any device that's capable of like screen mirroring or screencast. It's called like multiple things depending on what type of device you have. I've seen a lot of people use the 3-ray mirror, but I'm just not gonna buy that right now when my phone works perfectly fine. But I don't know, if it's the better option, then I may look into it. So pretty much all I did was section my hair in the sizes that I wanted them to be, which is like medium size. And then I put on the rubber bands so that everything can stay pre-parted until I'm ready to start the braiding process. So today's video is sponsored by Ywigs. They sent me all the hair that I'm going to be using for this look. I really wanted to do a braiding look using only human hair, and I was able to accomplish that with their help. So for the braids in particular, I used their 20-inch Kinky straight human braiding hair. And then for the curly pieces for the boho look, I used their 18-inch water wave human hair. I want to get a little bit into the prep work before we get into this tutorial. So I pre-separated all my hair pieces out, as you should before doing your hair or anyone else's. And then I used this Murray's beeswax or the braiding gel that I had to kind of keep the pieces neat while they were separated so that they didn't get tangled together. Then I used these thread racks that you see in the background. People are calling them braiding racks, but you can literally get these at Walmart for super cheap. Do not buy them off Amazon. These are thread racks, and I think they're like less than $10 or something like that. I used 4 of these to keep the pieces separated so that it would be easy to grab and go during the braiding process. All right, so now I'm down to the nitty gritty. To me, this is a difficult concept to grasp, okay? And specifically, this is only for overhanded braiders. I don't really know how to master this technique yet underhanded. So even though I do know how to braid underhanded, when I'm feeding in the hair, braiding overhanded was just better. And when you're braiding the back of your head, braiding overhanded is just easier in my opinion. So first things first, you need to pay attention to your braiding patterns. Like, what's your dominant hand, and what hand is not dominant. For me, I need to feed in the hair with my right hand. So that's my dominant hand. But then my left hand becomes my dominant braiding hand. So what I had to figure out was which fingers I am holding the hair in between when I'm braiding. And for me, that is my pointer finger and my middle finger. So when I'm feeding in the hair, I place that strand in between my pointer finger and my middle finger when I'm feeding it in. For a lot of people, they hold that piece of hair between their pointer finger and their thumb. And either way, no matter what fingers you use to hold the hair, the technique does not change. You just have to be mindful of your own braiding technique and your own braiding pattern so you can know when to feed in that strand of hair. So one of the things that helped me grasp this concept and this technique is realizing that I am always going to be feeding in that piece of hair, that strand of hair, into the middle strand of the braid. And that does not change no matter if I'm feeding in hair from the right or left side or with my right or left hand. So I kept this portion of the video in real time so that you had time to look and learn and grasp the concept. I learned this technique by watching it. A lot of us are visual creatures, and although I'm explaining it to you, the explanation goes much better when you are able to watch the video in real time and instead of sped up. So feel free to rewind this portion of the video as much as possible. Pause it, whatever you need to do, because the rest of the video will be sped up. And so here is the finished braid that I just recorded on camera. And as you can see, the base is nice and tight and the braid itself is nice and neat. So the next thing that I want to get into, which I probably should have talked about first because it's the first step, which is starting your braid. So as you're going to see me do multiple times in this video, I only started the braid once, is how I like to say it, which is just basically I'm talking about how far you braid your braid down before you start feeding in your strands. So I only braided down once is what I would like to call it. But as I started to move through the rest of my head, I found out that if I braided down a little bit further, that those braids ended up being a little bit more secure. But this is gonna be different for each person. My hair is fine and a little bit on the thinner side. So I think it just created a more secure base for me to braid it down a little bit further. But if your hair is thick, you may get away with not braiding it down that far. So just keep that in mind when you're starting your braids. The other thing you want to pay attention to is the size of the strands that you are feeding in. If you feed in really big pieces, your braid might be lumpy. But of course, if you want bigger braids, then you need to feed in bigger pieces. But you may need to gradually increase the size as you're feeding in the strands to achieve that look so that your braid does not turn out lumpy. So on to the next step, because we are moving right along. Now I'm just going to demonstrate how to feed in the curly pieces of hair. I feed in the curly strands of hair the same way that I feed in the straight strands of hair. The only difference is that piece of hair that I leave out, that piece of curly strand that I leave out, I never feed that back into the braid. I just place it out of the way, either on a clip or in my mouth, and I continue to braid down until I'm ready to feed in the next piece of hair. For some people, that is not secure enough, but I've had these in for over a week and I have not had any issues. For me, that is the easiest way to feed in those strands without making it overcomplicated or adding more work into yourself. Like some people crochet it in after, and I'm not doing all that. So for me, this is the easiest method. Now for me, for the particular length of hair that I chose, I had to continuously feed in hair throughout the braids to get them to the length, size, and shape that I wanted them to be. So I just wanted to show y'all this demonstration in real time, how I fed in hair throughout the braids. Essentially, it is the exact same technique, but if you're not paying attention to your own braiding techniques and braiding patterns, it can get really confusing. So I have the entire back finished and look, they're just beautiful medium braids with the curly strands. And now we're gonna move on to the front, which is gonna be the tribal look or whatever you call it. So now we're getting to the part that really was a challenge for me. I originally wanted my style in the front to be smaller braids, just like you're kind of seeing all over Instagram and wherever, but I just could not do it on myself. I had to do this medium-sized braids because it was such a challenge for me to feed in the hair and try to make the braids smaller. I think all in all, I just need more practice. And then also my hair is a little bit finer and shorter in the front than it is in the back. So I think that also like made it a little bit more challenging. And then on top of all that, feeding in the hair this way also came with its own set of challenges because your girl was struggling. Mind you, this is the first time I've done this kind of style on myself. But like I said, my toxic trait is I could have never done this style a day in my life, and I see it, and that's all I gotta do to believe. I see it and I believe that I could do it. So I really believed in myself. And that's the whole reason why I was like, I can do this style. And the whole time I'm recording a tutorial like I'm teaching y'all, and I really had to teach myself like while I was recording this video. So I just find that funny, but all it comes down to is like once I learn it and I teach myself, then I can teach y'all too. So hopefully I was able to help at least a few of you grasp this feeding concept. Now, in terms of inspiration, I just searched around on Pinterest, YouTube, and Instagram looking for these type of hairstyles that I just found were the cutest. And in my mind, I thought that I could mimic some of my favorites. And y'all, I just could not. Like, some of the best ones had all these cute little swirly and curvy and zigzag designs. And my skill set is not there yet for braiding on myself. Now, I can do those on somebody else, but braiding on myself, I was like, I don't even know where to place my hands on my head to get this kind of design. So I just had to opt for some straight backs. I still tried to make it cute so that it looked like I did a little something. So finally to the finish line. I don't know if y'all could see it in my face, but your girl was exhausted. Once I finished, I did not do anything else. No curling, no nothing. I went right to bed. But I did want to show y'all the next day. So I left the ends of the braids undone. I braided down as far as possible and then left the ends undone so that I could curl them. Now in my mind, I thought that I was going to be able to curl these with curling rods and boiling water. But for some reason that just did not work out, and I just don't understand why, because to me, boiling water, like, is that not the same as using a curling iron? But clearly not, because as you can see, there was no curl formed. So I had to go through and manually curl these braids with this curling wand. And I feel like that was pretty much the only downside to using human hair, but it also could have been the method that I chose. I don't know. If you have used all human hair for a braided look and have the ends curled and it was successful, let me know what you did. But all in all, I really do love how everything turned out, regardless of the fact that I had to go in and manually curl the hair. I just still really am feeling the finished look. So that is pretty much it. This is the final look, and I really love the versatility of these flip over Fulani or tribal installs, whatever you want to call it. But I love the fact that you can wear it flipped over to the left, you can wear it flipped over to the right, you can pull it in a low ponytail, high bun, low bun. There's just so many ways that you can style this type of style. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and until next time.